Welcome to This Team is Killing Us, a podcast about what the Carolina Panthers do to good people. She is Lauren Brownlow. I am Demetri Ravanas. And Lauren, what is killing me this week is even though both you and I think things are going better than they were 2 weeks ago, we think they are going as well as we could have expected right now. It is very clear that whether it is God, whether it is fate, whether it is Mother Nature herself, somebody is not on our side because the Carolina Panthers, the individual Panthers themselves, continue to drop like flies.
Well, if you read the replies to tweets, as I do, because I'm broken inside.
Sure.
It's because, and I hadn't thought about this in a while, but now that it's happening again, I'm like, maybe there is like a little more to this. They're like, we don't care about the concerts. Please put in grass. Thank you.
Right. Right. That's the thing that like, I'm always careful to how much information about turf that I want, because I really don't understand what the major hazard is. I just get that there are exorbitantly more injuries on turf than there are on grass.
Yes. And I don't know if that's the like, I don't want to say that. I can't know that. But at the same time, like Shaq has played like what? I don't know, 3-4 games in the last 2 years, maybe.
So what, this would have been number 4. So let's say 3.5 for this year. And last year played what, 1.5, right? So that's right at 5.
Yeah. I mean, and he's not the only one that's gotten hurt.
Yeah.
Like there's other people that have been hurt from both teams. Like at a certain point, you just have to kind of look at, I don't know if that's the only reason, like who, you can't really say that for sure. But at the same time, like it certainly doesn't help on a team that already, because of a lot of past errors in judgment, doesn't have a whole lot of cap space.
Yeah.
Has kind of had to choose between the offense and the defense going into this offseason. Understandably chose the offense. It's paying off, but like there is zero defensive depth.
Yeah.
None. And so for guys to like get those kinds of injuries, and they're usually something like an Achilles or an ACL, or it feels like, or like a hamstring or whatever. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a turf expert, but maybe there's something to it.
Let's talk about Shaq Thompson. He is out for the year. Lauren mentioned it is an Achilles tear. He said on social media that anybody speculating that he should retire after a second season like this is foolish. That is not what he is going to do. You hate that he's out for the year. I hate that it's an Achilles tear. That is not a small thing. However, I will say it. I texted you this on Sunday. Given how many tiny bones and ligaments are in the foot, when we initially thought it was the foot, to me that would have been so much worse in terms of the uncertainty of it all.
Yeah, I mean, it's just none of it's ever good, is it? But
right.
I mean, and don't tell Shaq to retire. Like, mind your own business. Seriously, like imagine a football player that doesn't even know you coming into your life and being like, "Time to retire, old man." Retire.
Yeah. You're done at the accounting firm.
Calm down. He'll decide on his own. Like, sorry.
He is the lone tie. Him and DiontaeJohnson are the only ties to the 2015 Super Bowl team at this point. And I'm not saying that's a reason you have to keep him around, but like, let's not hurry him out the door.
No.
I think the pain of all of this is not just Shaq, right? It is that Josie Jewell, who is not out for the year, but he is out at least a couple of weeks with a groin strain. We find out this week that not only are they not ready to start Jonathan Brooks on his return to the field, they're also not ready to start DJ Wonnum on his return to the field yet. Like, boy, this team really does feel cursed.
Well, and like I said, maybe it is cursed, or maybe it's some of the other two. I don't know. I don't have a good answer to that because I'm not an expert, but yeah, it's not the best. I mean, Brooks, though, this is like, I mean, I'm not trying to be like whatever about it, but I did say this was my concern. It was like,
well,
I know he's coming back and they're taking it slow, and they should, like we said, like Chuba is playing great. Chuba looks awesome. Even honestly, I thought even Sanders looked much better last week than I thought he had looked before. I
said this in the post-game video on Sunday after the game. Like, do you realize this is the first time in over I guess technically over 2 seasons when you add the games up, that we have a running back coming in off momentum of back-to-back 100-yard games?
Yeah, I know. And like, Chuba was capable of it last year, but the
Sure.
O-line wasn't.
Right.
And I think they had one of the best like pressure rates allowed in terms of the lowest yet again this past week.
Not only did they have the best, Lauren, they had the
best.
like it was the best, and it was appreciably better than any other team. I think that they were at 14.3% pressure rate, and I can't remember who the next closest was, but they were at 17.7. Like the Panthers clearly had the best this week.
Yeah. So, but look, I mean, I've seen some people saying this, and I agree with it. Like the team had to make a decision with the resources it had at its disposal in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't have that much to go after free agents with. They know they have needs on defense, but they had to assuming, okay, we're going to give Bryce a better shot at this and improve what is around him. And that's what they did. It was the smart thing to do, considering that's what they were trying to do, is like make their second-year quarterback more comfortable after what he'd been through the year before. So they went all in on that side of the ball. And now we're seeing like, what the defense looks like as a result.
Yeah.
But it's still nice to celebrate what the offense is doing. It's nice. Like I even saw Sanders at one point. He had this run where like he did that little hesitation move, the little stutter step. And I'm sitting there screaming at my television, go! But then he like literally gets right past it. And I'm like, okay, now I kind of like understand you better and I see the vision. And I am the idiot sitting here screaming at you to like, but I was really pleased with how he played because I'd been a little underwhelmed with him the first few weeks of this season too, but I thought he looked great. Chuba, as always, I love him so much. I just get so happy when he's around. They even said it on the broadcast. I felt so seen. They were like, he will finish every single run.
Yeah.
He finishes it so hard. And that's what I love about him so much. So that was nice to see. But it does come, what does it cost? As Thanos said, everything on the defensive side.
And I do want to stay with the defense for just a second because I mentioned that it's not only Jonathan Brooks, who they're not opening the 21-day return window on. It's also not DJ Wanham. I think you and I are... like, we're not part of the media core, but we're something obviously a little bit beyond a casual fan, right? I think that we came in knowing what the holdup would be with Brooks and knowing that you're right. They had to allocate resources of how they were going to rebuild the defense. They let so many guys walk. They got lucky, I guess, but also they're getting Jadeveon Clowney on the back end of his career, so he comes a little bit cheaper. They got lucky that the market was what it was on DJ Wanham and were able to bring him in.
Yeah.
And then training camp opens and he's not available. To me, that's the more disappointing of these two return windows not being open. Maybe it's about need coming off of injury, but also I think it is just about like, I don't know, just more. Two things. One, I really wish they would have been more aggressive in bringing in Chase Young, and they weren't. And two, this is just not a wrinkle that we knew was likely or possible coming into the season. And now, if they're not opening the 21-day window on Wanham yet, he's not coming back till after halfway through the season.
Yeah, and look, literally every time a defender goes down, I feel like throwing up. Because my thing is this. I mean, look, credit to them. I will say this. Big time credit to them in the second half. Toward like, I don't remember if it was the third or the fourth, but there was like a sequence there with right after like Shaq and Jewel had gone out, and you're sitting there like, well, shit. Now it's going to get real hairy, but they kind of like stepped up. I mean, look, were the Bengals trying to do a whole lot, maybe with a lead? Not necessarily, but at the same time, like they stepped up and got a stop when they got some stops when they absolutely had to have them. And like, I I gave them the credit that they deserved as much as I swore at them in the first half.
Sure. I mean, look, I think you could argue with those two guys on the field. The Saints weren't trying to do a whole lot when they had a lead, and they were still able to, right? Like, so
yes,
it is
that's the thing. Yes.
Yeah. So it's a step in the right direction. We talked about the resources invested in trying to get Bryce on the right track or just to rebuild this offense. We are closing in on the NFL trade deadline, and I did not realize that all of the league seems to think we're doing a flip this house kind of thing on DiontaeJohnson. I mean, he is the subject of like so many teams' wish lists of who to trade for at the deadline.
I'd like to echo a lot of comments that I've seen from Panthers fans in the Instagram.
Yeah.
Please stop trading our good wideouts.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I want to know where this is coming from, because even if
they're not floating it.
No, I mean, it doesn't. Like, I have no reason to believe that this is coming from the Panthers, right? This is largely people saying that, hey, this would be a great fit for Jordan Love with the Packers. This would be a great option for the Chiefs if Tyreek
Maybe don't go down 28 to Sam Darnold. I don't want to hear what you guys need. Calm down and be quiet.
And here's the other one. And this is the one that really got me, because, look, I understand that I lived this life too as a Bama fan in college. But Steelers fans going on social media and ranting about how unfair it is they cannot trade to bring DiontaeJohnson back because there is a rule that you cannot trade back for a guy within 2 years is crazy. Like I said, I did not realize we had signed up for a Flip This House project. I don't know that the Panthers realized that everybody thought they were signing up for a Flip This House project with DiontaeJohnson.
By the way, it's probably not a coincidence that those are two of the most entitled fan bases in all of the NFL. Okay.
Oh, you say Packers and
Steelers? Yeah. Steelers being numero uno on that list. Okay. And P.S. Y'all miss him so much. Just come on down to Bank of America Stadium since you all live here. Okay. Right. Please. And thank you.
So the rumors as we go towards the trade deadline, I think the rumors will continue to swirl around the wide receivers because the passing game, or I guess the offense in general, is in such a state of uncertainty and flux right now. We have some
defensive players you might be interested in.
Whoa, Lord, we cannot afford to trade defensive players right now unless we are getting 2 or 3 back in return. But let me ask you, if the Panthers are willing to say, hey, this isn't working out with Bryce, we are going to have to move on, and that means whatever. That means we're stuck with Andy Dalton for a couple of years. That means we're already ready to draft a new receiver. Whatever the case is, do you look at Adam Thielen, who is on the very, very back end of his career? Do you look at Jonathan Mingo, who has more bad than good?
No offense. Who wants him?
I go back to what you said last week about quarterbacks, and people will always panic. I think similarly, if teams think they have the quarterback, they will always be entranced by speed. And Mingo does have speed.
And there's always an I can fix him thing.
Of course.
Receivers. You know, I mean, there was a degree of that with Deontay, right? Yeah. With the Panthers. That's what people were saying. But the Panthers really weren't in a position like beggars, choosers, etc. But it ended up working out great. He's been fantastic. I mean, he's not perfect, but he's been great. And I don't know. I'm just trying to think off. I'm like, maybe a Tommy Tremble or something. Or would you be interested in a Tommy Tremble?
I mean, Legette and I guess definitely Jatavian Sanders because he's a rookie, but Legette and Sanders seem like the two obvious, and Chuba not on the board, not available to you.
They better, if they trade Chuba, I might drive to Charlotte.
I don't think they could. I think he is the majority of your offense at this point. I think that Chuba, Sanders, Legette, and I would put Johnson too as if you trade those guys, man, at this point you are risking people even coming to the stadium anymore.
Yes, and already people are still not completely back. I mean, I think people are cautious. You could tell. I saw people talk about the energy in Bank of America was still pretty bad, and I get it. There's not, it's going to take time. I think, but maybe even it's so sad to say, but maybe even a loss like that gets people a little bit more excited again. And look,
this isn't
Yeah.
This isn't, I was reading a column on The Athletic I can't remember who wrote it, but it was basically saying, like, it's really hard to digest the Alabama-Georgia result because Georgia's at a point where they shouldn't have moral victories, but clearly they got so much better by the end of that game, right?
Yeah.
I think that, in the two levels, Carolina is nowhere near the Georgia of the NFL. It is totally fine to take a moral victory away from the fact that this team does not look hopeless anymore.
No, and I mean, are there like things that happen in that game that you'd like to have back? Yes. Did I scream a lot during certain things happening? Look, XavierLegette. I did it.
Yeah. It takes. I went back and listened to after I recorded the post game videos. Like, oh, I saad Legette like 3 times because I've been saying it for years.
Seems like it should be that. Like it almost seems like half cage. Whatever. Anyway, I love you. I want to love you completely. I want to give you my whole heart. However, I'm afraid you would drop it right now, and I know. And I know that you are doing your best. I know you don't want to have those drops either. I was so happy for your first touchdown, but sweetie, please just please hang on to the football. I'm like, God, no.
It is very much a like nice things just are not for us sort of reaction, because he will have like that first catch he had on Sunday was beautiful. Like the layout to the sideline was beautiful, and he'll hang on to it, and then he'll have really dumb drops too. Like it's not Mingo where it's just like this motherfucker can't do anything. Like Legette clearly can do so much.
Around.
Right. And even then, that's pretty new that he can successfully do an end around. Let's be fair.
Yeah. No, I mean, and yeah, I mean, I want, but it was nice to see him on the field more. I mean, look, it's like fourth NFL, like third or what was that? Fourth, right? NFL game. Like,
yeah.
It's fine. I'm not overreacting, although I did see someone in an Instagram comment compare him to Devin Funchess, and I had a little triggering response. And I was like, oh, that hurts me, because Funchess was similar at the start, and you're like, please, you'll get better.
Yeah.
And no, but it's fine. And then obviously there were other mistakes that were made and the only thing that got me furious at the defense was like the tackling on that Chase play. I know Chase is amazing.
Sure.
I get it. And by the way, I thought it was interesting that it was framed that way on social media, because I'm sitting there like, look, Jamar Chase is fantastic. Like, he's a great player. However, like, that looked like you put 3 Pee-wee football teams out there and said, do your best to tackle. Right. Like, literally, that's what it looked like.
Yeah.
I mean, the first tackle attempt was so sad. I was just like, bro, is he made of Vaseline?
Yeah.
Like, it was like he was barely touched. I was just like, oh my God. Like, it just, the tackling on that play was some of the worst defense I've literally ever seen from this team. And that's saying a lot.
And it's disheartening. Not all the way to feeling hopeless, but it's disheartening that by halftime, when the Bengals took the lead,
and you knew they were getting it first.
Right. Here's an 0-3 team that you knew was getting their first win that day, or at least that's the way I felt. Like I didn't think the Panthers had any hope of winning that game.
The way the defense was playing in the first half, especially, I'm sitting there like, the offense has to score in every possession.
Yeah.
Like,
I love a good mock draft. I will tell you one thing that made me feel like, honestly, it was like this is nice. The majority of the various mock draft sites, machines that you look at this week switched the Panthers and the Jaguars out of, like, put one in the number 1 spot and took the Panthers out. And it was like, that might be the first time that I've seen that happen in 2 years. How nice.
Yeah, right? I mean, geez, the Jaguars.
The OG fans is where you find all of our exclusive content. That is where Lauren writes about the Carolina Panthers, Joe Giglio writes about the ACC, and Tom Edwards writes about the Carolina Hurricanes every Friday. You can also see Lauren's pop culture column there as well. And we're starting to add some guest columnists here and there on Thursdays. There's so much happening. If you are not part of the OG Fans family, you can subscribe anytime. Just go to ogtrianglemedia.com. Not only exclusive columns, but also podcasts you will not get for free. So sign up right now. OG Fans is at ogtrianglemedia.com. Lauren, we love to look forward on this show, but let's rewind all the way back to probably the greatest player in franchise history. What did you make of Cam's relationship or interactions, I should say, with the Colorado Buffaloes on the sideline of their game in Orlando this Saturday?
Well, I mean, look, I wasn't surprised to see him hanging out there. Like, it seems like that's a place to be seen if you are like of any note.
Gus Malzahn, UCF's coach, is his guy. That was his OC at Auburn.
For sure. Yes. And then also like I heard Rick Ross was in the locker room before.
Yeah, of course he was.
Which is wild. Hey, you know what? Maybe having Cam around worked great because they played, I thought, one of their better games under Dion. Yeah. Like ever under Dion. So I don't know. Maybe it worked out, but I mean, I wasn't surprised to see him there. It seems like he's been around football a decent amount he's been at some Auburn games as well.
Yeah, I think he goes back to Auburn pretty regularly because he's in Atlanta, right? Yeah. Like Atlanta to Auburn is less than 2 hours.
Well, maybe he won't go this year.
For his health, I hope he doesn't. All right, so here's what I wanted to ask you. Like, it was very clear Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders wanted nothing to do with him, and a lot of people are tracing it back to a comment Cam made on his podcast saying about Shedeur Sanders that he doesn't get the cockiness because what win do you have to hang your hat on?
I don't see from Cam. I don't know that that's like the move.
Tell me why, because I think that there are very few people that have a leg to stand on in making that kind of comment, and Cam is one of them because that Auburn team that he won a national championship with is probably a 6-win team without.
That, you know what? That's fair. That is fair. You're right. Like, because
I think Cam. Okay, so I was thinking about this in relation to Tom Brady's comments about Baker Mayfield this past weekend, saying that he was brought in and told to kind of, be fun, take some of the stress off. I think Tom Brady could be very good at explaining the game of football, and this is very similar to Cam if you listen to his podcast, these guys sometimes cannot grasp that dudes are not as naturally great as they are.
It's why sometimes really great players are terrible coaches.
Yes, agreed. And I think, a totally different sport, but I think this is something that Wayne Gretzky has been pretty upfront about. Magic Johnson as well. Both of those guys, I think, lasted less than 10 games as a head coach. And it was just because, like, what do you mean I have to explain to you how to do X, Y, or Z? But like a few years ago, maybe last year, we had this moment with Cam where he was talking about quarterbacks as game changers versus game managers. And I cannot remember who all was on his game changer list. I know that Josh Allen was on there. I know that Lamar Jackson was on there. And there was one more. And he said those were the only three. That's right. See, I seem to think that Mahomes he put in game man. There was someone he put as game manager that was wildly like the way we think of game manager would be egregious, right? But if you,
I was gonna say, I don't even think of Mahomes as a game. He does some wild shit out there.
I totally agree with you. And maybe it is Mahomes. Maybe it was Burrow. He said was not a game changer, but was a game manager. But his point was that. Or I think if you could put yourself in Cam brain, this is what I assumed his point was. Cam, Josh Allen, let's assume Mahomes was a game changer because he fits this description as well. Patrick Mahomes, those are guys you have to account for. Yes. Joe Burrow is very, very good at doing what a quarterback does, right? So I think to say about Shedeur Sanders, what win can you hang your hat on, does not mean he's calling Shedeur Sanders a loser. He is merely pointing out you've done what you're supposed to. If you are this guy that you're acting like, at some point you have to do what nobody thought you could. I don't think Cam means these things as insults the way we take them sometimes, because I think it's pretty clear that dude's brain just works different from you and I when it comes to football.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess like when you bring up the Auburn thing, like that's true. I mean, I think even Cam understands like what an insane accomplishment that was to do with that particular group of guys, and he was the reason. He was all of it. And so
I mean,
like
I think there are a lot of us that think he was, if not the reason, he was a major reason that the Panthers went to the Super Bowl after the 2015 season.
110%, yes. And so like and there were games his rookie year that they were literally only in because of him, you know? And I mean, yes, he was a huge reason for any success the Panthers had for various lengths of time. He was Auburn's literally only or biggest one, certainly, like far biggest. And so I think maybe for him, like that's part of it. It's like, don't tell me about how bad your O-line is, or from Shador's perspective, right? Like, don't tell me how bad your O-line sucks or like whatever. You've got a better wide receiver than I ever had. Like you've got stuff around you that I didn't have, and you're going to be out there acting all cocky before you've done anything. Like I think that's probably the way Cam's brain, analyzed that situation. I don't think he meant anything personal. I agree with you. Like he wasn't trying to like make him
whatever
bad or whatever, but
whatever you think of Cam, whether you are, someone like I was for a long time, a Bama guy that just hates him because he's an Auburn guy, or whether you are someone that thinks, he is traumatizing your daughter, like that woman in Tennessee. I think that what is obvious about Cam is no matter what the layperson thinks about him, everybody that plays with him loves him, except for Steve Smith. Everybody that plays with him wants to follow that dude. And so I think that's the perspective he's talking about this from. I think everybody at Colorado is so chronically online that they just cannot let anything go. I think they looked like assholes in this situation, but if I'm being honest, Lauren, I think Cam kind of looked like a loser trying to go and say hello to them anyway.
Well, that's just Cam. Like, remember when he met back up with Kelvin Benjamin?
Yeah.
And like Kelvin, it didn't, I mean, I don't know. Kelvin didn't seem like wanted a huge part of that conversation, but Cam was basically like, "You're gonna hear me."
Yeah.
And like kind of was like, whereas a lot of us would have just been like, "I'm good. I'm not going to talk to that guy. Like, screw him, whatever." Cam was like, no. Like with your dropping passes, gaining too much weight ass, like, don't you throw me under the bus. Like, get the hell out of here. I never threw you under the bus.
Right.
Like,
I think that one of the things that is interesting is I sit here and tell you, and the Benjamin video is a really good example of this.
Yes.
Is I sit here and tell you that Cam looks like a loser. Like, I think there are a lot of people that agree with me. I don't think Cam cares. Like, I don't think that he views himself as a loser for trying to connect with a dude.
I remember even at the time, people were like, Cam should be above that. Like, he's this, he's that. And I was sitting there like, y'all don't understand Cam, And I mean, like, I get it. Like, if somebody doesn't want to talk to you, like, why not make it uncomfortable and just be like, hey, what's up? Like, make them cold shoulder you. And then, I get what you're saying, but
like I want to be clear. I don't think I'm not somebody that will defend Cam no matter what. I really hate, I think the criticism of him has long been over.
No, I get what you're saying.
However, like, I think you look at the way he behaved after the Super Bowl, he looked like a loser. I don't think there's any way around that. But I don't think he is chronically needing to be liked. I think Cam, dare I say, there are some things that I'm not diagnosing Cam here, but there are some things that look very much on the spectrum about the way Cam relates to other people. You are in Cam's world. Cam is going to go about his business, and you can deal with it however that affects you. That is not his concern.
He cares not that you think his pants are too tight or that his hat looks stupid and you're roasting him online, or that his shirt has feathers on it and you think that makes him look like a girl, which is the worst insult in all the world to some.
The man spent a whole season wearing a fake foxtail to press conferences. Do you think you can hurt his feelings?
That's what I'm saying. So like, I get what you're saying about like, maybe like he might look like a loser, but for me, I've always admired that about Cam, like that ability to just like, it would be one thing if his feelings looked hurt afterwards. Then I think he would look like a loser, but he just doesn't give a shit. And that to me makes him look cooler, and it makes them look thin-skinned. And you know what I mean? Like, I get what you're saying. And yes, I defend Cam a lot, so I'm not saying I don't. But at the same time, I was just like, in Cam, like the fact that he genuinely doesn't care, like sometimes that's one of the biggest superpowers you can have. It's like genuinely not giving a shit. The older I get, the less I give a shit what anybody thinks about me. And it's so liberating. And so I'm like, is this what it feels like to be Cam? Like I do want that sometimes.
That's my daughter is 15, and like you could think back to being 15, right? Like there is no time in your life that you feel more self-conscious and judged and all that kind of stuff. And I tell her all the time, like, you have no idea how happy you will be when you learn nobody gives a shit about you. And it doesn't mean they don't care about you. It means they are too self-involved to be thinking about you at the moment. And that's like Cam has totally embraced that.
Right. Like there's or it also just gets to a point where you're like, oh, someone might be judging me over there. Okay, whatever. Who gives a shit? Like, I don't care. I don't know them. Am I ever going to talk to that person again? No. Like, who cares?
Yeah. Dude, it took me till I was 40 to embrace that was the reality. Like, I'm never going to see this person again. Who gives a shit?
Imagine being as good as Cam was and having that mentality already. Like, that must have felt amazing. And so it makes me understand him more the older I get, actually, like, weirdly. Because there were times where I'd be like, God, Cam, can you just like do this or that? I think he wants people to like him on like a human level.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like there were things he definitely did or didn't do during his career in Carolina. Like there were certain causes he didn't speak out on as much as people liked, etc. But I think some of that was because he wanted everybody to like him. He didn't just want like one political spectrum side to like him. He wanted everybody to be able to love him and embrace him and whatever. But he also he was going to be him at all times. And like, there is something to me that I think is like really kind of cool and liberating about that. Like, I mean, yes, like if he were in high school and went to talk to the popular girls at their football game and was like, hey guys, and they ignored him, would he look like a loser? Probably. But at the same time, it's like, he's Cam Newton. Like, if they don't want to talk to him, like, because they're mad that he said something slightly not great about them on a podcast, like, what do you? I don't know, man.
All right,
I mean, that's their prerogative, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, before we get out of here, you know, I have described myself as your emotional support Panthers fan, and here I am for you right now. I do want to know how you feel about facing the Bears this week, because you wear the badge or the cast, the wound of the amount given up in that trade to move up to number one, like way more on your sleeve than anyone else I know. So talk me through it this week.
Okay. Last week, I can tell you one of the things that hurt me the worst by far in that game was Chris Jenkins' son. Chris Jenkins, a top 5 beloved Panther for me in my life. Loved that man so deeply.
Yeah.
Like, to see his son, who is a freak, by the way. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen any of his videos in the weight room. Like, he does insane stuff. Yeah. Like, to see him, like, making plays against my team hurt me so much. So, in a way, it's not quite the same thing because of the emotional attachment I had to Chris and whatever, but in a way it will feel, I think, like similar, because it will be like, there's DJ, you know, like we didn't have to not have him. There's like what I'd have to go through. I'm gonna have to go through and check all the picks so that I know who to be upset about. There's this guy, could have been ours. You know what I mean? Like, it's just even thinking about what could have been with some of those picks. It's not even about Bryce so much for me. And I've said that for
sure.
It's about
like I've always understood that for you the pain is the price paid, not what was acquired.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, you don't want to like waste a pick like that. I'm not saying you do, and but you took a shot. A lot of teams would have drafted him despite the revisionist history.
Right.
You know, it's fine, but to give up all that was not necessary, and it has cost them a lot. And so, like, that is the pain for me. And then, of course, when the Bears inevitably win, right, it's just going to be this chorus of like, oh, so, and then it's going to be, but hopefully that blame then shifts back. That's the one good thing that can come out of this. It's just going to hurt because it shouldn't have happened. But like the one good thing that can come out of this is that the national media shifts their focus back to talking about the dude who wanted to do that shit, which was David Tepper.
Well, you hope so. That being said, I don't think for a second, whoever it is that the broadcast team is that Fox is going to be sending to this game, I don't think they will be able to help themselves but talk about, oh, look, Bryce is on the bench and the pick that they traded for him, Caleb Williams, is a starter. There's
going to be so many shots of him on the sideline.
Absolutely. And look, even if, and I want to make this clear, I am rooting for Caleb Williams. I'm rooting for every young quarterback in the league. I'm bored with the group of guys we have right now.
Yeah.
I think that if this is the game where Caleb Williams breaks out, we're never going to hear the end of it. Or not never. We're not going to, there's going to be nothing else they talk about on that broadcast. Even if the Panthers win, if Caleb Williams has his first, 300-yard game and his first multi-touchdown game, it's all we're going to hear about.
Right, because it literally could have been them. Yeah.